Welcome back. How much did you hate me after doing this challenge? Now, this was specifically supposed to be hard and difficult and frustrating, and most likely you're not going to get right the first time around. This was done on purpose to illustrate a point. What we're actually doing here, well, you won't be asked to do in an interview. But I wanted to show you how to think about things because later on, I'll show you how it's actually a lot simpler than thinking about each individual step in a function to calculate things. There's not much math involved, and this is as mathy as we're going to get in this course. But again, I just want to show you the nitty-gritty details so that you can think about it and have a nice foundation so that moving forward, we can simplify things a lot better. Now, let's look at this function. It's the fun challenge function that takes some sort of an input. The very first thing is within this function, when we run the fun challenge, let's just say we'll have fun challenge and we run this function and the input doesn't really matter. It could be an array, it could be an object. For now, let's just keep things simple, say it's an array of 5. Now, when we run this function, the first thing we're going to do is an assignment. We're going to assign variable a as 10. Now, based on convention, and this is why you won't encounter this in an interview because a lot of people interpret this differently. Some people say that assignment, you shouldn't count towards big O, and some people say that you should. In our case, just to simplify things, let's count every single step and what the function is doing. Let a equals 10 is just O of 1 because this is only running once when we run fun challenge. That's it. It doesn't matter how big the input is. This just runs once. And then 50 plus 3, we're reassigning a. This, once again, is O of 1. And then we get into a loop. We know that with the loop, it looks like we're looking at the length of the input and looping over depending on whatever the input is. In our case, this is going to be an O of n. Let's add that comment over here. And this n is the input. Remember that I can change this to input, I can change this to x, it doesn't really matter. It just reflects how big the input is. That's how long this for loop is going to take. And we know this by now that loops are linear time. And then within here, another function. We don't know what this function is, but it's calling to another function outside of the fun challenge function. This is also being called how many times? Well, it depends on how big our input is. So once again, it's O of n. What about this? Let variable stranger equal to true. Again, another random assignment here, but this runs as many times as this loop happens. If input was 5, this will run 5 times. So again, this will be O of n. And then over here we have a++, which in JavaScript simply means a plus 1. So we're just incrementing the whatever the number a is at this time. So 53 will become 54. And then as we loop through it, it'll keep increasing by 1. 54, 55, 56. This, once again, runs O of n times. It depends how many times it runs by the input because, again, we're looping through it. And then finally, another thing that some people don't count, but just to keep it consistent, every single step that we do, return a. This runs just once. Every time fun challenge gets run, the return statement only runs once. All right, so we have all these big O notation. And now we're starting to think about how a function runs and how efficient a function is. If we actually calculate all of these, if we total all these up, we see that we have 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 steps plus O of n, O of n, O of n, O of n. So that means we have n plus n plus n. So that means we are running the calculation n plus n plus n plus n, which turns out to be 4n. So 3 plus 4n is our big O notation. There it is. Like I said before, when it comes to big O, don't get too hung up on, did I get this right? Because in an interview, you're not going to need to know this. But you are able to now think about how a function runs more deeply than just simply writing the code. As we progress through the videos, you're going to find out that this actually, at the end of the day, gets simplified to just O of n. And we're going to go through that and why that is.
Yeah.